Good evening to all, and welcome to the Chatter Afters official companion podcast to HBO's The Last of Us, where we seek the art beyond the clickers. How is everybody doing out there? I am Brandon Alvarado, the Scarlet Fan, and I'm accompanied by a great member of the Beyond the Clickers crew, Brett. What's up, man?
What is going on? How's everybody tonight? I'm really excited to talk about this episode.
Yes, there's. I think us calling this to be a big episode was an understatement because I think it's safe to say so far this is the biggest episode of the season, right?
Yeah,
In more ways than one. I mean, I still have a very I'm very attached to episode 3 still because
yeah,
of all of the emotion and all the nice liberties that they took to expand the world of The Last of Us. But this episode, it's like not only did it do the thing and it ticked all the boxes,
yeah,
it made this story, this chapter, just become that more real, that more hurtful, but that more profound for those that love the story, that love the world, and for TV viewers alike. Like nobody, I'm pretty confident that we felt a certain way when we witnessed this for the first time. I'm
yeah,
really interested to see what your wife thought about this episode because I
yeah.
know you've been talking to us every week that she's watching it and learning of The Last of Us for the first time with the
Right.
show with you. So I'm really interested in hearing her thoughts. But I think we jump right in. We talk a little bit about certain news articles that are interesting related to the episode. We jump into so the first section is going to be introduction news. Second section, we literally go deep into the episode, break it down as an episode of television, highlighting those things that are unique to the show and not necessarily 100% faithful to the game, but a good expansion of it. And of course, we will never forget you, our friends, fellow gamers. We will talk about all the Easter eggs that are alive and well and thriving in the show. So, funny enough, this episode is titled "Endure and Survive,"
Yeah,
and it's like they. I think they heard us every time we signed up and said, you know what? I think these guys
they're on to something here.
they're they're on to something. They're so funny. I was listening to the podcast and apparently. There's a thing where like lately Craig and Mason, I've seen people like have Last of Us stuff tattoos, and one day they went to a restaurant and the waitress had a tattoo, "Endure and Survive." So it's
That's
everywhere.
amazing.
Yes, yes. You imagine what it is to write something, to come up with something, and then people have it in their bodies.
Yeah, people have it permanently inked onto their skin, and it's like, oh
Yeah,
wow, okay, it really, hit
it
home for you.
resonated, and then you listen to what happens on the show. Yeah, it's not great. Like
Yeah, no,
when they comment on it, it's beautiful poetry. So yeah, the first piece of news that I wanted to try and talk a little bit about was one of the biggest surprises of the episode was that not only did we see a bunch of infected, now it wasn't like a little pack, it wasn't
yeah,
like these guys is like a bad ant, like when you step on an ant colony
yeah, and
and
just like all of them
they're
coming
just
coming out.
yes, they're everywhere. Like if you stand too close, you suddenly have a river of ants in your feet,
Yeah,
in your foot.
like this episode really like made sure to like show the threat that
Yes,
these things possess, both
yes,
in numbers and both like even like singularly. Like some of
yes,
them are pretty intense. So it was cool. Like we definitely saw that like early in the show. Like we
yeah,
saw the clickers, we got all that, but yeah, just seeing them in this big of like this big of like a combat arena was
yes,
pretty nuts.
yes. And in this small of a form too, I was never
Yes.
expecting to see a child turned clicker
Bro, the
like this.
worst things are always the kid zombies or the kid fungi or just like
What is it?
like
What is it?
remember the
Is
Blair Witch when she's like in the tent and you just hear all the little kids laughing and the little hands coming out the tent? It's for whatever reason, kids are the most horrifying thing, especially when you like make them look like this.
well, for years, some of the B horror movies of the 80s and 90s, it was the series Children of the Corn.
Right.
Like it was all about weird, twisted kids
It's a
doing weird
nightmare.
to people. Yes, of course, because why shouldn't kids be the reason we have nightmares? But they found this young gymnast, which again, this hits close to home because my sister was a gymnast throughout her entire childhood. So I've seen her do all these things that she's
Yeah.
so it's like it hits home very, very fast. But the combination of prosthetics, because they like this was one of the biggest feats of the show, was the fact that they were able to do this with a combination of practical effects and CG to blend it so it enhances the realism of everything that's going on. And something like this, like I was reading the article, and the funny thing was that one of the things that he goes like, hey, if you thought that this scene with the child clicker looked very real, it's because it was.
Right.
Like, I'm glad that that's the difference between when you see a film, or like when you start to value set designers, you value costume designers, you value practical effects. You like, for example, that's one of the reasons why I think The Walking Dead was so revered for the longest time, because everything was practical, right?
Yep.
It looked disgusting, it looked crazy, but it was done with practical effects, and everything was amazing.
When you do practical effects, like, it's being, performed still by like a human. So it actually, like, it sounds like silly, but like it has a soul. There's like a heart or a soul to the performance. Like literally, like figure, like
don't tell that to ChatGPT.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I know. It'll get mad and take over my whole entire network. It's Skynet. Thanks, everybody.
That's what
you guys did it. It's Skynet. Congratulations. So, but yeah, that's like that is, and it's a reason why, like, a lot of, like, when they did the the prequel Star Wars movies, why, like, while people are coming around on them, I think a lot of it, there's a lot of things people could say about them. I still enjoy them, but that, I think, was a lot of it was, I just think like a lot of the characters were like soulless. They were just these weird rubber, I've joked about this like many times, like when they have these like rubber CG action figures, like rag dolls, like going around, and just like, you can sell there's no heart or soul behind the performance. Like the motion capture is so important, and they're getting better because they are doing full motion capture now, and we have things like, games like God of War and The Last of Us, obviously. But when it is an actual human, and it's like not their performance being translated onto something, but like in the actual practical effects, and then just like you said, those little enhancements that CG can do, and it's both those artists, the digital artists and like the analog artists, like working in conjunction together, and it's something magical. And it's a reason why, like, a lot of the new Star Wars stuff, like, guess what, they stopped doing like all CG. They like really went back to like using the puppets and like and doing that.
That's one of the reasons
I'm so happy there's a renaissance.
So good.
Yeah,
it's one of the reasons why The Mandalorian was so good, right?
Yeah, because it actually had there's like a tangible like feel to it, even just watching it. Like, you could just see like things have a weight to them, the way they move, the way they function. It's just like something that CG they still really like haven't like 100% nailed yet. Especially if it's not a motion capture CG. So, and it's great just like to keep this art alive, and to see it start thriving like this, and like these incredible results. Like, what we can do now with practical effects is just like unbelievable. Like, I don't think 30, 40 years ago people would even be able to imagine some of this stuff. It's awesome. So it's good. And listen, it's keeping people employed, and it's keeping that artistry alive. I think that artistry is so cool and so important,
So I was watching the episode, and I saw that inside the episode they always do the nice HBO thing they do all the time.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, so you came out of the sinkhole? Is that what this is?
I came out of the sinkhole just because I had to talk about this moment, because I have a unique perspective with the child clicker. So I'm not going to stay too long, but the child clicker, this is when I got my screeners. This episode was not finished. So seeing the pre-CG render of this kid was the funniest thing I have ever seen in my life. Like, I couldn't tell if the scene was supposed to be funny or tragic. Ultimately, it landed on tragic, but like just seeing this weirdly animated child who looks like she's from a PS1, like Lara Croft Tomb Raider game, just come in and attack Kathleen was like, was that played for laughs? Was that some sort of like comedic irony with that death? No, it wasn't. And this was a moment I've been waiting for weeks to tell you guys because I didn't want to spoil it, but yeah, it's really funny seeing the finished product now compared to the unfinished render we had when we first got the screeners for it.
Right. That's amazing.
That must have been very awkward because you wanted to keep laughing, but then you saw how horrible it was and you couldn't laugh anymore. And then you laughed a little bit again.
Yeah, that's really what happened. Because like, oh, this is not funny. But the part is like, it's still kind of funny knowing what this
Yes.
looks like.
Right.
Yes.
There's something beautiful about that.
Yeah, for sure. Have a great show, guys. You've been great.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Awesome. Nice for the little. Go back to your sinkhole.
Yeah. back to your sinkhole.
But I love one of the things that I loved about this was also that I was looking at the inside the episode thing they always do at the end of the episodes, and one of the things they mention of why they wanted to keep things practical, which is what I love, right? Like the biggest issue when it comes to effects is always the extremes, right? Not everything has to be done in there. There's the best ones are always going to be the hybrids where each enriches the other. And that's why this particular moment, the final moments of this climactic cul-de-sac scene, is that they literally understand that, hey, there's a lot of nuances and movements that you can't capture with CG unless you have an actor, someone actually doing those movements and stuff like that. And being able to do that and then having the CGI touch those things up, it's a completely different experience. And this definitely blew my mind. Apart from the fact, Brett, did you know? I'm going to read the article. Don't worry. I'm just going to keep it up so we can keep freaking people out. But I am going to read from the article. But did you know? I was listening to the podcast. Did you know they built this set?
Oh,
it was built.
Oh, that's awesome.
This was a street, like a blank lot. They built all the houses. They built the entire set. They filmed it for 3 weeks to make it happen. And the craziest thing about it is not only the fact that they built all this, they blew it all up, but it looks just like the game.
Yeah.
It looks almost exactly like the game.
Yep.
It's, bro, I can't. It's
It's so awesome. Like kudos. That what they're doing, like with that stuff. I think it's really, really cool.
It's like, but this show is about walking. What do you mean it has an HBO budget?
Right.
This is what that means. This is where all the money went.
That budget.
Yes. So a nice little tidbit from that article for this one in particular about the child actor, gymnast, contortionist, but also talks a little bit about the prep work from prosthetics. It says the clicker who played the child that almost ends Ellie really was a 9-year-old named Sky Newton. Sky, you were awesome. If you watched episode 5 and marvel at its CGI, you'll be shocked to hear that most of what you saw was actually created using practical effects. All of the clicker makeup was real, with the actors having eye holes in their mask so they could see. However, for close-up shots like the one of Newton in the car, the show's makeup artist created plugs for those eye holes, meaning the actor wouldn't have been able to see anything as she crawled over the seats, which explains why it looks so weird. She fumbling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The latest episode of The Last of Us was clearly the biggest undertaking by those creating the show so far. It took 65 prosthetic artists 5 hours to get everyone ready for the scene, including preparing the actor who played the bloater. Yes, that bloater was an actual
that I actually
suit.
saw. It was an actual suit.
That
So cool.
to me was like, yo.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that when you see the trailer, you think it's CGI. It has the little thing.
I thought it was when I first saw like the little preview for the episode, but then when you actually get it in motion, I'm like, oh no, it's so
and the way it moves and stuff like that, it's like this dude is a freaking bodybuilder that's wearing 40 pounds of weight in that costume.
Right.
And this looks horrendously horrifying. And I still remember like fighting bloaters in the game. It's like the force of nature, and you see them. It was terrifying.
Yeah, it really is. I love also, like, I mean, this is obviously like all the, fungi infected people are like this, but
Fungi.
I just love the split,
all the toads.
All the toads. The split, like right in the middle, like the top lip and then into the head, like just the way like the fungus grows out. So cool. Like even the little creepy girl had it, and it was just like there's that weird gap
that defining feature.
So unsettling. Yeah, it's like a really unsettling thing. It's such like a really, and like that's the thing you see like across like all of the mutations is that split in the head. And I think that's just some cool shit, man. That's like it's got like a telltale, like a call sign or something.
Yeah. I'm waiting for one to have like a little flower at the end of it.
Just one little daisy, just like dangling in the wind, like a Pikmin or something.
Yeah. It's not all bad. So it took 65 prosthetic artists 5 hours to get everyone ready for the scene, including preparing the actor who played the bloater, dressing them in a costume that weighed 40 kilograms. It's all paying off too, as the episode is the highest rated episode of the season so far, and the show continues to grow from strength to strength. Bro, this roller coaster ain't stopping.
Yeah.
Ain't stopping at all. And of course, with this also comes that from December to January, The Last of Us Part 1 remake for PS5 is now from 36th place in the charts to 11. Wow. And I love how this particular, because it came out in September of last year. So before the show came out, it started selling, and now it's almost at 11. It's at a slot 11. But I love how they low-key in this particular art, they low-key say, oh, and by the way, that The Last of Us Part 2 has been enhanced for PS5, right?
Right.
So you can pick that up and keep on going, which is great because they've gone on record that they're gonna focus on the story of The Last of Us Part 2 whenever they move on to other seasons.
Right.
So the article, little bit from The Verge, the huge success of The Last of Us HBO series has seemingly led to a big sales bump for the newly released remastered, what's the remake, of the first TLU game. According to a new report from the NPD group, The Last of Us Part 1 jumped from number 36 on its bestseller chart in December to number 11 in January, the month the series premiered. The Last of Us Part 1, which was improved graphics and brings over some features from Part 2, hit PS5 in September. The PC version will be available, again, smart marketing. The PC version will be available on March 28th, soon after the first season wraps. And if new TLU players want to check out Part 2 ahead of the release, the show's second season, that game has been optimized for PS5, so it should look and play great on Sony's new consoles as well. Buy PS5, people. That's all they're trying to say.
Yeah, I think they added a 60 frames per second patch, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I think they did a couple other little visual enhancements.
Yeah. And that game by itself looks amazing.
Yeah, I played it on PS4 Pro, which was still beefier than a
right.
vanilla PS4, but that game looked incredible. I was like, how is this going to look better?
Yes. Oh, it's just going to move faster.
Yeah.
So we got to jump into the episode.
Yep.
Let's start talking about it. It starts. So you had a qualm, Mr. Mira.
Yes.
You had a qualm at the end, a tad nitpick about how is it that Henry just happens to show up out of nowhere, and
just because it's like there's a lot of floors in that building, and I was like, how did we just end up on like the 33rd floor or whatever?
Yes.
And just like the way it was shot, it looked like they had like come in through the window on that floor or something. There was like a window behind them, and I think maybe I was like, so it had confused me. But yes, like they spent a nice chunk of this episode showing like the days leading up to Henry and Sam running into Joel and Ellie. And I was like, oh, okay. They kind of followed him and like tracked them a little bit. They knew it was up. So like,
it was purposely done. Like they were purposely following them.
Yeah.
Because Henry had this idea, right? Now, before we go into that, because once we get Henry and Sam, Joel and Ellie together, we're going into the route and the journey of the episode, right? But one of the first things that we see is something that we have never seen before. This is original to the show. Just like Kathleen and Perry are original to the show, the whole plot of an active rebellion is original to the show in the sense that by the time you get to Pittsburgh, which is not in the show is Kansas City, and the game is Pittsburgh. By the time you get to Pittsburgh, the hunters, as we call them in the game, have already taken control of this city for a long time. Like they control ins and outs of it. They're literally hunting people that stumble into the city for supplies. So this has been going on for a while. It's not like a freshly birthed rebellion. You see like bodies that have been decayed for weeks and days of federal officers. So apparently, according to Henry, this just happened 10 days ago. So this is like super fresh. So this is the heart. And I wasn't able to get a shot, but the rebellion, everybody's celebrating. And there's so much violence and disturbing scenes of celebration because of freedom, but how that translates to brutality. And when you first saw this, because I know you played the game, and like I think like me, you're very big about environments, like to see what's around, and you know what we find. We find burned bodies on a pile. We get a line on that. We see a bunch of officers hanged. We get that. We actually see that.
Yeah.
And when we even see the graphic scene of someone getting gunned down on camera, like brutal. When you saw this, what was going through your mind?
Yeah, there was one guy that was they were dragging him from a car and he had like a million knives in him. Like it was like literally like every like civilian stabbed him once with a knife. Like I was like, it was brutal. I mean, this was like, I liked this little change from Pittsburgh and like how they made it like really fresh after the rebellion. So like it was smart move. Like it upped the urgency, especially when it comes to Henry and Sam, as we learned. Right. I mean, we kind of learned in the first episode, Kathleen's looking for Henry and Sam, but now we like really get a lot more insight into why. So it sets the urgency up. It's like, they just overthrew everything and they're hot and pissed and like still ready to just like take all these people down that they see as traitors. And then, we get that reveal too that, Henry was the one that ratted out Kathleen's brother. So she's like really pissed. It's not even just like,
which was the leader of the rebellion.
Yeah. So, the leader of the rebellion was her brother.
Right.
And now she like took over because of that. So now she's like she had some like, a cool scene. Like there was that, where she's like, he would want me to forgive, but no, this is just what I'm doing now. I'm committed to this and I'm doing it. And it was just like, all right, I feel you. I guess. I mean, that's
Perry goes, certainly a choice. We're with you. We're with you. It's all good.
Yeah. He probably definitely regretted that later after what happens to him. We'll get into that. I won't jump down that far yet. Yeah. But yeah, I just really like, I think it was, like I said, I think it was a smart move. It really kept the urgency up and it just made everything else that followed that like so much more important and dangerous feeling and stuff. So that's just like these are smart changes and it just makes for more compelling television, especially when you have to do things episodically. You know what I mean? Even like a 10 episode season which is, let's say it's going to end up being like 10 to 12 hours, maybe total. It still ain't like the 20 hours that, the 20 game is about 20 hours. Maybe I'm slow. I explore everything. So, but I'm sure people get beat in like 9 hours.
It's a solid 20, 30 hour if you're looking at every nook and cranny and opening every single drawer.
Yeah. So it's like still you need to move things along a little faster than obviously if you have a game where you're trying to milk your consumer's time. So these are like the good kinds of changes, like when you're going to make a change for television or a movie or for another medium. These are the smart changes you want to see. And that, you know what I mean? Not just like, well, let's just change the names of the main characters and swap their genders. And like for why? Like there are just some like productions that do shit like that. And you're like, what for? Why? Like, why? Oh, you really think you're making a statement because you changed it? I don't know.
I don't know why, but that's like I feel that low key, even though I love the movie, yes, I'm the one. Even though I love The Dark Knight Rises, right? Spoilers for a 11-year-old movie, by the way.
Yeah.
When you get the reveal that he was always Robin, or at least that his name was Robin, you're like, you could have just said this. Just called him Dick. Dick Grayson is a cop. Just call him Dick. That's all you needed to do. It was just
like a cheeky reference. The thing too was that it was like a cheeky reference, and it wasn't even like meaning he was Robin. It was just like, haha, his real name is Robin, and now he's gonna be like. It just was like it was kind of lame. It just didn't need to happen. And listen, I was a big. I defended that movie like in front of all my friends for like many years.
But that's the one thing we can't defend.
Awesome. But no, in recent years, like it's definitely soured. I've soured on it. And that was like cheeky and like I don't know, like it wasn't a good cheeky. But anyway,
it was the bad cheek.
It was a bad cheek.
Yeah, the best one of those is Batman Begins, no doubt.
Yes.
So we get the rebellion. All this happens. It's horrendous. And in the middle of the insanity, we find our brothers, Henry and Sam. So I knew we knew. That was weird. I knew that we knew already because it was announced when HBO didn't want to shut up during the first week of the show. We knew that Sam was going to be deaf and played by a deaf actor.
Right.
Kevon Woodward is, I think I got his last name right. He was amazing.
Oh yeah, he was really amazing.
And also to be his first role ever, it's like, I mean, that I know of, it's great. Also, the gentleman that played Henry was just phenomenal as well.
Yeah, he was really, really good.
Yeah.
Both of them, I was watching, like, that's all I was thinking the whole episode. I was like, both these actors are really, really good. And like, I actually believe that they're brothers. And like, it is like, that was like amazing chemistry. Like, I was like, they are so good together playing off each other.
Yeah. And the nuances and like it's all about the nuance, right? And I think the sign language also, the familiarity that they both have with the language specifically.
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that the actor that played Henry learned it like for the show. Like he didn't know sign language before, which again, wow. But when you start seeing him signing, communicating with Sam, that to me felt so fresh. And it was a very intimate dynamic between these brothers.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Because when you think about it in the game, to a degree, you sort of spend more time with them to a degree.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that we were able to get some alone time with them that we didn't have before. Because in the game, you only get time with Henry and Sam when they're with Joel and Ellie. You don't get time with them by themselves. So I love how those first 10 to 15 minutes of the episodes that we get with them allowed us to really dig their connection, their relationship, and then of course how it spills into the relationship that they start building with Ellie and Joel.
Yeah,
it was so good. And also like when you find the doc, it kind of threw me off a little bit when you find out that he goes to the place that Kathleen finds on the previous episode.
Right. Yeah.
So it kind of threw me off. That's the moment where like, wait a minute, isn't this guy dead? The doctor guy is like, wait. Oh, so we went back.
Yeah. There was definitely a second for me. I was like, what? And I was like, oh, I get it now. Okay.
I see what you're doing.
You're doing smart stuff.
So I love how once they leave, right? As soon as he starts looking out the window after they leave the hideout, they see the arrival of Joel and Ellie.
Yeah.
And
they hear it, and then they see it.
Yeah.
It was a very loud entrance.
Yes. And I love how immediately his gears, because remember, as we find out later, the only thing that Henry knows how to do to survive is convince people. That's all he knows how to do, right?
Yeah.
Which I find it very peculiar, because in the game, again, I'm going back to it because I think it's very important. In the game, Henry's just another burdened, hard survivor, just like Joel. Younger, but just like Joel. Here, he's a survivor, but because he's been surviving in Killer City, like he calls it.
Yeah.
He's learned to survive with his mouth, with his smarts. He's never been violent, but he understands that the only way he can survive is by having a violent ally. And the idea that he goes to Joel because he's violent. What do you think about that particular twist into the relationship?
Yeah, I like it. It was cool. I mean, like, that's one way to do it is like, okay, find somebody that has what I lack and somehow manipulate that situation and hope for the best. I mean, it's a very dangerous plan, but I mean, it's what it's like he said, it's what he knows. So yeah, it's cool that they're exploring like other like characters and different, ways of survive, or I guess you're gonna call it ways of survival, or just different like opinions on what surviving is and stuff like that, rather than just like, oh, everyone's a bitter, hardened, murderer. Like, there are people out there that, they find other ways to survive. They use their smarts, and his choice was to be a collaborator, which I that was actually a cool thing too. Is like when he tells Joel he was a collaborator, Joel immediately calls him a fucking rat, and I was like,
I don't work with a rat because
I don't
he
work
was a
with rats.
smuggler. He was
he's a smuggler, so he knows.
So he can't
cool
work
that,
with a
like,
rat.
That's like a persistent like opinion, like across these different like zones and QZs, that the collaborators are all rats, and like so that's like that. I thought that was cool. Like that's like again like subtle maybe, but like cool like world building. So because like Joel's in like the Boston QZ, and like that's how like they think of him, and like here in Kansas City, like that's it too. And I'm sure we'll hear about that maybe in some of the other stops. But I thought that's just like a nice little touch. They're like, oh yeah, you're a rat. That's one thing we could all relate to. The collaborators are fucking rats, It's cool, but yeah, man, this episode had all of the emotion of like episode 3, and then like all the action of like episode 2. Like, and this was like a really
and all the story from episode 1.
Yeah, and like all the story of episodes. So like it really like it just delivered. It is amazing, like 5 episodes in, like just to see like the ratings and the reviews just staying consistent or getting even better. Is usually most shows I feel like at this point everyone's like, oh, there were 2 crappy filler episodes, and no, this just show is just delivering. It's just delivering. It's
and I think also it's when you think about it, like one of the things that we talk about at the Amateur Talk all the time is that lately a lot of the newer animes, especially those that are typical shonen, like young hero animes and stuff like that, they've made a big change in the last 10 years. And it's that it's no longer like Dragon Ball Z, where it takes a week of episodes for Goku to actually become a Super Saiyan. No, the story's constantly moving. Every episode, it's packed with story. And we're seeing this, like, think about all the story that we've gotten in just 5 episodes.
Yeah, but still having really good pacing and like allowing moments to breathe.
Yes.
So it's really been like a masterclass on like
it's been a perfect balance.
It's been really good.
Perfect balance of themes and storytelling. It's Craig Mazin. Kudos. I mean, I actually appreciate the fact that I had the opportunity to watch Chernobyl before I watched it. So like once I heard that Craig Mazin was interested, I was like, okay, I guess I gotta watch Chernobyl.
Yeah, I haven't watched Chernobyl. I'm like, I gotta go watch that now.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to go back.
It's great. It's just I think it's a 6 episode. I think it is.
Yeah.
But like you can see all those shops from the guy that wrote Hangover 2 and 3. You see all the you see all the shops of pacing, which are great. Now, also, how powerful was the revelation that Henry's a rat after we've seen Kathleen kill a room full of rats?
Right. Yeah.
That was like, I love how those simple setup and deliveries were just so powerful. Like when she leaves the room, like, and also Melanie Linsky is such an amazing actress, because especially in this episode more than the previous one, you kind of see how she understands that she is able to be sweet, but switch into her darkness in a snap of a finger.
Yeah.
Like when she's talking to the collaborators and she goes, I need you to do one thing for me. There's quiet. And then she slaps her hand and you can hear that in the room. Your informers inform. And you're like, holy crap, Return of the Jedi. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was frightening. And then when you go outside and it was like, we're not really going to put him to trial, right? And she's like, no, just, do what you need to do. Then just burn the bodies. It's easier. And then you remember the pile of bodies that you saw.
Yeah. And you're
it's like, oh, bro, like this lady's like,
she's ruthless.
Yes. And and also when you get that quiet moment, right? With Perry and all that, I think we can do that and then go to the underground tunnels. It was powerful because when you hear her story and how she talks about Michael, how Michael was her protector.
Yeah.
It literally is that they killed her Joel.
Yeah.
That's literally what happened. And the idea that she needs payback. I love the idea that it's kind of like foreshadowing things that we're gonna see,
Yeah.
which I love. I love those little things. I love little things like that in the story.
She's so what's cool about her too is like she's so reactionary and just reacting to like everything that just occurred, and so being led by, I think, just like emotion at this point.
Yeah.
And I think she knows that, and it's probably not the right thing to do, and it's not what her brother would want, and she even says as much.
Yeah.
But just the commitment to just be like, this is how I feel, and I'm just gonna move forward with this.
Yes.
I don't care if it's really the right choice. Like I am just following my emotions 100. Like she just gave herself over to it, and that's what like this does to people. Like, like she just gave herself over to just be like, nope, I made this choice, and I'm going to hell in a handbasket. So let me just do it. And I thought she was because I know a lot of people were talking smack, I think, or not like feeling her maybe in the first her introduction episode in episode 4. But I think this episode, she was a really cool character. I really enjoy her. I've seen her in a couple other projects, and I just she's kind of a quirky actress. I don't think she makes the obvious choice too, and I think that's why like some people maybe were like a little off put by her, or like didn't see like she makes interesting choices. I think with like her line delivery and like how she responds, and she doesn't just do like she could have just did like machismo tough lady thing, and
But no, she kept all the.
It's a little more nuanced. Like
Yes.
like I think she even said something because like she knew people were like talking crap, and because people were like, oh, it's like she was like a soccer mom, and I think she said something like, like, yeah, what if she was like, she probably was like a soccer mom, and like was this sweet like Susie Homebaker, and then homemaker, and now she like is just tapping into her emotions and like rolling with it, and just giving her soul away. Basically, I think it's a more nuanced performance than I think people give her credit for.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. And also how Perry just sticks with her, and the reason she sticks with her, whether he wants to admit it or not, because you kind of see it in his face, because he's actually frightened of her. He's frightened about the darkness, but he understands that the darkness, it's what's delivered Kansas City from Fedra.
Right.
So he has to
just like, I'm with you. I'm going to blindly follow you, basically, even though I think you might not be making the best choices. I'm going to stick with you. And I think it's like also kind of make clear, like he had a lot of respect and worked with her brother too. So I think there's like a loyalty there or something, which is cool. But yeah, man, good stuff. But well, we'll talk about them in a little bit.
Yeah, and kudos to Jeffrey Pierce, the one that plays Perry, motion capture actor for Tommy. So, we're gonna keep seeing people, I believe. So that's exciting. Now, I like the idea. I like everything that happened with them, and then when Henry tells them their plan, it sounds like a horrible plan, by the way.
Yeah,
it's such a horrible plan,
and he's so arrogant and cocky about it. It's gonna work, and I'm like, oh, dude, you're a cornball.
No, and I love also like I also kind of like when they're eating, like when they first meet, right? When Joel is on the floor, I was like, and he goes, okay. It's like, and he goes, that's a weird tone, man.
That's a really weird tone, man. She's like, that he always sounds like that. Is his asshole voice? He always sounds like an asshole.
I love how Ellie feels so comfortable with Joel that she's able to just like say, fuck you and your asshole voice. Like, Joel, what is wrong with you?
Your asshole voice is great.
Beautiful.
Yeah, good stuff.
So they go into the maintenance tunnels because that's their way to sneak away from all the different guards that are patrolling the highways and stuff like that. And we find a castle.
Yeah.
Daycare. The evidence that a community lived underneath. Ellie and Sam are able to play with those toys, and they take a time to relax. And to me, this is amazing because, again, this is the kind of thing that I find so brilliant, because this is not a random room. It is literally a piece of Last of Us lore that
Right.
if you take the time to explore the area, if you take the time to read the notes, as soon as you leave Pittsburgh, you have to go through some sewer tunnels, and you find that at some point a community of sewers, a community was built within the sewers, and the person that started it was this man called Ish.
Right.
And people made mistakes and people got infected, and it didn't turn out good, which we don't see the results of this here. But the idea that they were able to include this here
Yeah.
without living the city, I think this was just, it was brilliant.
Yeah.
It was so brilliant. Like, when you saw them get there, did you remember that sequence?
Yeah, I did. So like that, yeah, that was just fun. Like I love how they've just been finding ways to like keep surprising us and like squeeze like little things in from the game in
Yep.
in spots that make sense. And
Yeah.
it's just a cool piece of world building. Yeah, they even said like they said like right after the outbreak happened, like a lot of people like they moved underground and tried to like live
Made it
out and
grounded,
carry on stuff.
made
Yeah.
it logical.
Yeah, very
And
cool.
this is literally the same drawing from the game.
Yep.
But that's not the only thing from the game that they find here, Brett. We also get, finally, Savage Starlight.
Savage Starlight. Yep.
Bro.
And it's the exact cover and everything.
Yo.
Right?
Yo. Like, you can only imagine the smile on my face when they find it.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and then just Ellie going, "Oh, I have issues," da, da, da. And then Sam goes, "Oh, cool, I have issues," da 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 da. And like,
Yeah.
bruh, yes, why not?
Yeah.
And then how beautiful it was when they started doing, I don't know how to sign, but like endure and survive.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
doing the whole thing, that was just mwah.
Yeah.
And I love seeing them being kids. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, moments like that. Like, and it's beautiful because you have Joel. Ellie reminds Joel what it was to care for someone like a parent, right? And then it's like Ellie that's been to throw so much, right? And she's a teenager, but like being with Sam reminds her what it is to be a kid.
Yeah.
And the fact that we see these things is like, sometimes you just need a little bit of hope or a little bit of ray of sunshine or to move on, to be able to know to move on. And these little moments like this of levity were great. And of course, we have this great scene where we find out what Sam did, what Henry did, why he did it. And but what I find the most interesting about that conversation though is what Joel says when he says, if whatever you did was to take care of him, I mean, I'm not saying they should let it go, but I could understand. I shouldn't have said what I said.
Right.
And then when he says what he did, Joel is just, oh crap. But it's interesting that seeing what Joel has done forever, or the way he reacts, you kind of already know, like, Joel is of that mindset.
Right.
He thinks from a love perspective, not a rational perspective.
Right.
It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. I'm going to protect the person I need to protect, even if it appears to be the most horrible thing. But I love how Henry is kind of like, even though he knows he did the wrong thing, he kind of has that morality to him where he can say, I'm a bad person and I did a bad thing. Like, I know why I like, he did it out of rationality in the sense that he did out of love, but he understands the cause of it. So even if they both lose, he knows that's a possibility. And if he loses, he's not going to feel like he didn't earn the punishment that he got.
Right.
Which Joel would never think that way.
Yeah, no.
Joel is somebody else can come help them. Somebody else will come along because we have a kid in our car. Like, that's Joel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, the dialogue in this, like Craig Mazin, I think he's been writing every single episode so far. And like,
oh wow, really? I haven't actually been paying attention to who wrote.
Yeah,
I always look at who directed, but
Right. So this one was Jeremy something that directed this one. But yeah, I think he's written every single episode, and this episode in particular, the dialogue has just been. I love how the dialogue is succinct, but it also lets the actors do what they need to do to expand. Because again, all of them have done phenomenally with everything that they've been given.
Yeah, no, everyone's been excellent.
Now, when we exit the maintenance tunnels, Henry starts to brag that the plan worked because, of course, and
I'm like, shut up, just shut up, stop talking.
Yes, we didn't find any infected. Everything was good. And then what happens, Brett? Who finds them?
Yeah, and then we just start seeing some real bad, really poorly aimed sniper shots coming their way. And actually, right away when they start happening, Henry tries to take Sam and start running away. And then there's like some shots go off and he runs back. He's like, oh no, oh shit. And Joel's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, he's like, I told you to stay there. You wait until. Oh, God. Yep. That was stressful. Really cool. And then, he just. Yeah, we have Joel, right? Goes and Rambo style. He's like, I'm gonna storm it, and get the sniper. I just stay here, whatever.
Yes.
And then, he sneaks up, and we find that old sad man just sitting up in the tower, and he goes, "Please don't make me do this. Please don't do this."
Didn't that break you, bro?
Yeah, like Joel literally just trying to give mercy, like, please don't make me do this. And then he goes and he's like, all right, you just hear pow.
But then you think about this though, like when I was listening to the podcast, one thing that they were mentioning that I found so interesting and so sad is like, think about this. How old could that guy be? He was probably 70 something or whatever, right?
Yeah, I think he wanted to die. He was like waiting for somebody to come up there, right?
Yeah, because think about this. For the last 50 years of his life, he lived a normal life, and suddenly the world went to. So the last 20 years have been the worst of his life. So like, it's either that or get infected, which I think would be horrible. Yeah. But it's like, wait, it would be horrible.
I think it would be horrible. It might be actually it might be kind of cool. I heard you get discounts at Disney World.
A fungi discounts. Actually, it'll be Universal Studios that just opened the
real
Super Mario World, Super Nintendo World. For all the fungus. I did find it interesting how they tied everything in. So, like in the game, when you leave Pittsburgh after exiting the city and escaping the hunters, that's when you go into the maintenance tunnels and the sewers,
right?
And then you end up in the cul-de-sac, and you have the whole sniper sequence. Here, everything takes place within the city, which was brilliant because they were able to flesh out all the Henry Sam storyline and stuff like that. I was not expecting them to do the whole Henry storyline in Henry Sam in one episode, but it worked and the pacing was phenomenal.
Right. Yeah.
But I loved how so much like in the game, as soon as Joel gets up there, things go wrong.
Yep.
But the sniper, but the sniper has unlimited bullets over there. He has the Metal Gear Solid bandana.
Right.
I do like the fact that it does that when he's firing, the sniper rifle does jam. So It's not like it doesn't do anything. So I do like the fact that it does jam. I do like the fact that he has to reload constantly. But I got to figure he had like a box of ammo. I would have liked to see it, but I don't care. The action is enough. But all the rebel army from Kansas arrives to their hunting them. And then remember there was a thing underground?
Yeah. Well, yeah, things I like to say that like things were like really not looking good. Like they were about to get Ellie and Sam and Henry, and it was over. Like Henry gives himself up. It was just like, I stay back. And he goes, and then, remember that thing in the building that they were like, let's not talk about it. We'll talk about it later. Well,
it wanted to talk back. And
let's just say the sinkhole opened up, and Mike came out, and then a bunch of zombies. And then, we had all the like just a swarm of crazy fast World War Z zombies. And then, of course, the Big Daddy himself. Mr.
Papa
Bloats.
Bloater.
Papa Bloats.
Papa Bloats.
Yeah.
You always talked about them digging into the horror elements of the show.
Yeah.
Was this it?
Yeah,
this
this
what
was
you needed?
awesome. This was great. This was like, yeah, just like the swarm, and like it gave me like 28 Days Later vibes.
Yes.
A lot of that, which like one of my like favorite zombie movies. And yeah, man, like just like how fast and vicious they were, and then you had the big bloater, and like just the way that like that thing moved and how that hit, and like and then obviously like so like the stars of the show, right, are the bloater and creepy fungus child.
Fungus child.
Like hard.
I don't know why, but I have a feeling there's gonna be a
Exorcist
poster.
style.
There's gonna be a poster somewhere where it's gonna be fungi child.
Yeah, creepy fungi child. So she's like doing exorcist crap all in the car, and like has the big blooming face. And then she almost gets Ellie, and that was like pretty terrifying actually, because she was just so little and creepy. I didn't like her at all. And then basically, like, well, I think first we see Perry tries to like shoot the bloater, and what happens, Brandon? That bloater grabs Perry by the head and just rips his head off, like straight up, like. And the show has like surprisingly, like they really like a lot of the violence has been.
Look at this guy.
I know, like
Look
the violence has been off screen.
I mean,
this
guy's handsome.
Yes, he's got a great,
but he
great
ended up
stately beard.
Yes.
But like, yeah, like a lot of the violence has actually they've talked about how like they toned it down. It's like they're not showing every little act of violence. A lot of it's implied. Like like when Kathleen has all those people executed, you don't see it. You just kind of hear it in some of the screams, and it's implied. But I love that, like, by the end of this episode, they were like, oh no, you're gonna see what happens to Perry. And like this monster, this bloater here just rips his head off his body and just like drops it down. And then Kathleen, unfortunately, meets creepy fungus girl, and she was vicious, like jumps on her and just claws her up, and then like there was like a huge bite at the end, right? I think she like clawed the crap out of her and then just went just like bit into her like an apple. And I was like, Jesus Christ, like, that was absolutely insane. So that was good. Like that was like, I'm cool if like I don't need all like the brain splattering everywhere and like watching every person get gutted with the knives. But when you're gonna have like these guys on screen, like the bloater and the creepy girl, like all the cool little things, like I like that those moments are like where you're seeing a lot of the viscera and like the viciousness of it. So that's cool. I think that's a good balance, because yeah, if it was just like people getting like really torn apart every 5 seconds, it's like, all right, that's enough. Like,
it loses its.
Yeah, then it doesn't hit. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't hit as hard because you get desensitized. So I like that. Like they've been really like playing with that stuff. Like like the second episode we had Tess with the weird fungus kiss, which was like so cringy and like weird. Like that was like a different thing. And then you had this like just outright just rip a head off. Which like, listen, a good decapitation, every once in a while, like just right on screen is great. You need it sometimes, Nothing like a good decapitation right center screen. And then you also got the just crazy like death by 1,000 scratches from the girl, and then
that was literally fungus, the fungal equivalent of Berserker Barrage from
it was Berserker Barrage. She did Berserker. That was exactly it. She Berserker Barraged her, and like so it's crazy. Like 10 days ago, they freed themselves from Fedra, and then I think everyone died, right? Like at least I don't know if there are people still back in the city, but the whole main crew is like their force is totally wiped out. So that was some good stuff.
Yeah, it was great. It was phenomenal because to me, one of the biggest things, like we were talking, I think we're talking about this in the first couple of episodes when we're talking about violence, right? Is that they've made the brilliant choice of violence being story driven. Yes. Like we see all the elements of the resistance, taking down the empire of Fedra. But all of that is celebration because of what just happened politically, right? So it was political violence. It was a violence that had a meaning. Is them getting over the 20 years of oppression, right?
Right.
Not good, but that's the reason for that, right? And then the reason for this is the introduction of Papa Bloats, right? Now, one of the things that I love about it is that they made the decision that, nobody's killing him. Nobody's taking the bloater down.
Right.
Like,
There was
this
like
is
there
not
wasn't
this is not a boss level that you have to find a rocket launcher and blow him up. No. He's a force of nature at this point.
Right.
The infected are a force of nature at this point. And that is horrifying
Yeah.
because the only way the heroes or the main characters survive is because they flee. Because nobody's taking them down. And I also I don't know. I know for a fact that that's not the intention, but I do like the subliminal quality of how a government is never that honest. How government is not necessarily always honest. Because what did Fedra say? Oh, they drove the infected underground 15 years ago and didn't let him back up. When in reality, all they were doing is they let pressure build somewhere and they were keeping it in check.
Right.
So they were lying about it because as soon as they're no longer there to keep it in check, what happens?
Right. All hell breaks loose. So.
Right. So in a way, like they were doing horrible things, but they were doing a good thing. But at the same time, they were not saying the truth about the situation because that's the only reason that the resistance was doing what they're doing. But they didn't know that this was a problem and they didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah. And you reminded me of something kind of like not related, but like when you were talking about Fedra, there was also a line, I believe it was in this episode too, where someone makes a comment that like, sometimes like, I forget what's like the word they use, but like sometimes the people that like kick the whatever people out, like the rebels are just as bad as the,
and that's a lot of time what happens, right?
Why can't I think of words tonight? It's like, that's what it is. It's like sometimes like, like the civilians are more monsters than the monsters they're pushing out, whatever.
I think that what we need to do is, we got to quote the Dark Knight, right? Like you either become the hero or live long enough to become the villain.
Yeah.
Right?
So I thought that was just like, interesting too, to throw in that like, like these people came in and like, they got free, but like, they're just as like, they're just the same thing. You're just replacing a horrible regime with another horrible regime. Right. So, also in the way these people, I guess, kind of had it coming to them. Karma.
And I think it's good that Joel is a pretty good shot.
Yeah. Well, so one thing I wanted to say too, that like
he missed.
I don't know about for you. He did miss a few, but
shot.
he was pretty solid. Listen, he made them when it counted. Like that clutch shot on the truck. At the last moment was really good.
Yes.
But this episode to me felt the most video gamey. I don't know if it was you or not. Like just the whole. I mean, and specifically this sequence, like the cul-de-sac, Joel at the top of the tower. I mean, because like literally, like you have that moment where you're like sniping and like protecting.
Like that's the game, right?
That's the game. But I was like, oh, this is so gamey. And then even the bloater, as cool as he is, it's such a video game thing because like video games, it's like, well, we have to have enemy variety, so I guess we'll make a big heavy fat one. Like in real life, like that. Like there probably wouldn't be bloaters in real life if this fungus happened. They would just be a bunch of fungus people. They would all be like runners. Like, you know what I mean? Like there wouldn't be these clickers and these other evolutions. Like it would just be a bunch of runners, And I think that like, because of video games, like you see this big bloater and it was like, oh, here's the boss fight now. Like it did totally feel like that. And I don't know if they wanted it to or not, but there in a way, like didn't make it feel goofy, but like, I guess just because like it felt so video gamey, I was kind of like, oh, this one's a little silly, but it was like ultimately like it hit where it counted, and it was an awesome episode. But it was a little bit. It was the most video gamey episode to date.
Yes.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it was so good. It was so good.
Was really
I don't know if you know this. It's on my Easter egg list, but I'm gonna bring it up here now. If people want to research it. So first of all, it was so weird because as soon as the bloater comes out, for some reason, they made the choice to let us know that Perry was going to die at the hands of him. I don't know if you noticed it. The camera goes into slow motion when Perry sees the bloater.
Oh, I don't know if I picked up on that.
For like 2 seconds, it goes like it goes there. He starts shooting it. He tells Kathleen to run, blah, blah. And the bloater does his usual video game charge. Like he has this tackle attack. So listen, the way he kills Perry, that's the video game death animation.
Oh.
Where he grabs you from your face and rips your head off from the teeth.
And rips your head
It's just that the game cuts it when your head starts to split.
Right.
But that's the game. Not only that.
That's so great.
See, now I know that you're going to go back to the episode as soon as we finish. And you're gonna listen
I know.
to
I'm like, I want to watch it.
So it's in minute 47:3. Yes, I know that. It's like that's around the time. So when he kills Perry, they play the death soundtrack of The Last of Us. You know that every time you die, there's like this high pitch, like ringing. They do it in the show.
I have to go listen to that.
Yes.
You put another. You're probably getting into it, but you put another cool things that stayed. The Ellie's switchblade clicker takedown.
Yes.
So that one I did pick up on. I was like, that's the takedown from the game when you get her and she comes down and does the nice thing. And I was like, that was awesome.
And the clicker does the noise. And
falls down. So good. There was some great shit with that.
Yeah, it's so great. Now, before we jump into, because we're gonna jump in a happy note, guys. We can't end in a sour note. So we're gonna stop with the Easter eggs right now because we got to talk about the final scenes because it doesn't end with them running away. It doesn't end with them arriving to the hotel. So they're able to escape the eruption of infected. They arrive to a hotel after exiting Kansas City because Henry's plan did work. Joel and Henry are bonding. Sam and Ellie are bonding through Savage Starlight. And as soon as that's what you have the line like, what does that comic book say? Endure and survive. And Henry goes, yeah, that's just redundant. It's not great. But then again, it's like the beauty of comic books, right?
Right.
When Henry closes the door, Sam gets serious with Ellie. And in a conversation about fear, being scared, he asked the question, which again, for those that don't know, this is verbatim the game until what Sam does next. Because it's that question that, would you think that when you become one of those monsters, is that still you inside? That's dialogue from the game.
Yep.
But the big switch that is not original from the game, but it's original to the show, and I think it elevates the material to another level because in the way that it affects Ellie and includes her in the process. Sam reveals that he was bit during the infected eruption.
Yep.
So when you play the game, they show you this the night before, but in a scene where Sam is by himself. He kind of like gets a little upset with Ellie.
And Joel doesn't know, yeah.
Right, nobody knows. Sam is a little upset and Ellie kind of notices it, but says goodnight. When this twist happened, what was your reaction to it? When he actually tells Ellie?
I was like, oh wow, that's different. I was like, what is she gonna do with this information now? Like, I was like, I wonder if this was gonna be like a big change, like they were gonna tell Henry or Joel right away, or if like, I don't know, like, not that I wouldn't think Ellie would have like immediately like went and killed Sam. So I don't think that was gonna happen. But yeah, I was wondering if like what like wrench that was gonna throw in, because I was also wondering too. I was like, are they gonna finish this like Sam and Henry storyline out this episode, or like are they gonna go on like a little more of a journey for another one? So, but yeah, that was an interesting twist. And then the reaction from Ellie was really, really cool and like just a great character moment. So we get her where she immediately, to comfort Sam, shows her bite and then tells him, I have magic blood and it can cure you. And I think she have, I think part of it is said because she wants to make Sam feel better, and there part of it is that she is hopeful that maybe it will be a cure. She has no idea, and that's also like her. She's had to be such like an adult for all this, even through all the sarcasm and all that stuff. She's had to be dealing with a lot of adult stuff, and it was just like such like a sweet, like naive kid thing to do.
Yeah.
And like also like in a way like motherly as well, like very
Yeah.
caring. It was just like a really sweet moment. And then it was kind of cool too, just for me, because I was like, oh wow, I wonder if they're gonna like, are they gonna do something with this? Like, is it actually gonna work? Are they gonna add like some interesting twist that like we find out more, a little more than we knew in the game, and it changes things a lot. But yeah, well, the next morning.
Yeah. That moment where when she wrote "My blood is medicine," I was like,
Yeah.
"You're not doing this to me, bro. You're not."
Yeah.
And she does it, and
Yeah.
she literally cuts herself to, I don't know, apply her blood to the wound, hoping, because remember, she doesn't believe, or she doesn't want to accept that she's the hope for humanity, right?
Right.
So upon this, her new friend, which is a lot younger than her, like in the game, he's closer to her age. This one was a lot younger. So it kind of gives it like this big sister vibe also, right? So it goes back to that line that Joel throws out there, like, it's easier for your kid because you don't have anyone relying on you, right?
Right.
But now they switch the table because in this moment, Ellie feels that Sam is relying on him in this moment. So even though Ellie is still a kid, she feels she needs to step up. She needs to be the Joel of the situation, right? And she does the thing, and she promises to stay awake, and she's really hoping that what kept her from turning will help him. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
And Sam, in the morning, when Ellie comes to say hi,
he's sitting on the edge of
I'm
his
getting-
bed, muttering to himself.
But think about
And-
this. Why
yeah.
hasn't he attacked anybody? Because he can't hear.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Because he's
Yeah.
deaf. But also, which to me was amazing when I heard Craig mention it. And it's like, so the answer is that in that moment, Sam was still Sam inside, but still,
Yeah.
with all the fungus wrecking his
Infecting
brain
him and
with
probably
confusion.
yeah.
Because also
That's
remember,
even more sad. Oh man, how'd you make that
Yes.
more? How'd you make that more sad, Brandon? How did you just make that more sad for me?
because I listened to too many podcasts.
Yeah, too many podcasts.
Stop. See, the Fanboy Podcast is a happy podcast. This is the
Yes.
one we cry. This is the one where we cry. But also look at the world building that's so interesting, because remember the chart of how quickly the infection works.
Yeah,
Closer to the neck, 2 hours. Where was Sam bit?
he's been
On
the
his
leg,
leg.
the ankle.
So it
So,
took
yeah.
all night
Yeah,
to overcome him, but he's in a corner, not moving, not reacting, because the fungus can't override his actual disability.
right.
So the only time that he reacts in the midst of the confusion of the infection is when he attacks Ellie, because Ellie taps him on the shoulder.
Yeah,
And then it happens. Joel goes for the gun. Sam grabs it. Henry grabs it. He doesn't know. Henry is like just woken up. He doesn't know what's going on. He shoots Sam. And after he shoots Sam, he begins to understand what he just did.
yeah,
What a phenomenal performance.
yeah. It was played.
Right.
So
I feel so
good.
horrible that I don't know his name. So I gotta
You
I
better
need
get
to
it.
know his name.
Look
Lamar
up his name.
Johnson. Lamar Johnson. What a phenomenal. he was amazing as Henry. And this in particular scene had to be so horrible doing it, but so powerful the way he did it. And the struggle within his brain to actually, because think about this, as a protector, right? When you see an infected, you know what they're capable of. You know that there's no cure, there's no vaccine. Going back to what he told, what Joel told Ellie, like, don't tell anybody of your condition. Nobody's going to think twice. They're just going to shoot you.
Right.
Right. The idea here that to me is so horrible is that his purpose is to protect his brother. But as a protector, the first thing he's always doing is recognizing threats. So when he woke up out of nowhere because there's an infected, he's not understanding that the threat is his brother. So what he does is end the threat. And after that is when he actually realizes, is like, and when he said the words, "What did I do?" I was like, no. And here's the thing. I've played the game multiple times. I knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
But this hit so hard. And then the idea that you see Ellie's reaction when Henry ends himself.
Yeah.
That was, I don't know, all around it was so powerful, so heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was a heavy episode, and it ended really heavy. But yeah, so it's like there's Mario in the comments. I hit pretty hard.
It did.
Thank you, Mario.
It did.
It did hit very hard.
It did hit pretty hard.
Yeah, it just I'm like really curious to like really see how that affects them, because like you said, it adds a different layer this time with like Ellie was like, so now she's like almost like she's probably sad that obviously she's sad they lost Sam, and obviously seeing Henry off himself was definitely really awful, and then the fact that she also maybe she's gonna question herself, like she put her blood on there, it didn't help. Maybe she was hoping it would, and it just that's gonna weigh on her. And if you look, I don't
think he's played the game.
Oh no, he has not played the game. He's trash. He's absolute trash. But yeah, that was that's interesting. I'm curious how that's gonna play out and like how that might affect Joel and Ellie's relationship and all that. So yeah, another stellar episode though. Another stellar episode.
So to me, the most breaking of everything is that we finally understand what this shot is from. Which was like the first shot of no, you're not.
Yes, you are.
Pick yourself up and just play the game. You can get it for free. Maybe.
For free, maybe.
Just do your job and find it. Love you, Mario.
Just fucking look it up, right? As we say on the Fanboy Podcast, just fucking look it up.
Yeah, just do your job. Call yourself a fan. No. So in the game, as soon as the event where Henry does what he does, the game, it goes to black. And did you eat something that didn't work with you? Or
too many beans tonight?
I'm a bloater.
A lot of cauliflower.
So maybe he was the one in the suit, right?
Yes.
So at this moment, right, in the game, the screen goes to black, and then we move forward in time, and we start somewhere else.
Yeah,
we know time has passed. They have different clothes, different environment altogether, but here we take 5 minutes to grieve, which we didn't have that.
Right.
But then we have this. And for the longest time, we know that their deaths affected our two main characters. But I love, in the storytelling aspect of it, I love how hard Sam's death really affected Ellie.
Yeah.
Because even though Joel doesn't know what Ellie did because they haven't talked about it, Joel sees that, and he knows that because there's a reason that she survived, and she may be the answer, but they haven't gotten there on time. So this happened. I mean, I don't know, man. This show just keeps doing all the right things.
Yeah. And just because I know you said earlier in the episode you wanted to know my wife's reaction to this episode.
Yes, please.
So yes. So yeah, well she was like a mess at the end of this, obviously, because of what happened to Sam and Henry. She didn't know what was coming and what heartbreak she was in for. So yeah, this really hit her hard, and she, actually she's not usually into like all like the violent stuff and like the action stuff. Like I don't think she even like cares about it, which is so interesting to me. Like it's the coolest part, all the action stuff. Why do you not like that? So, but yeah, she was like really pumped during that scene where all the zombies came in and the bloater. Like she actually didn't turn away for that one. She like turns away when all the violent stuff happens, but like she watched it and she was like, whoa, okay. She was like, oh, that was serious. Like she had a great reaction, and then by the end of the episode she was like, teary-eyed and like sobbing. So but yeah, she's digging the show. Like she's super into it. Whenever the new episode comes out, she's like, are we watching it? Like, so I know that like she's hooked on it.
Yeah, the preview for the next episode, it looks like we finally get to Wyoming or somewhere close to it.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for next episode. Now, before we go, we always promise you, all you fellow gamers out there, to talk about Easter eggs. So grab your little picnic basket. We got the eggs for you. Yeah. That's the worst segue in the world, but I did it.
We have the eggs for
you. So starting with the Easter eggs in the game, Henry and Sam know the way out. Henry particularly. Same thing in the show. This one was super cool because I noticed that this was absent from the first 5 episodes, and I've been waiting for this to happen. So I love the fact that it's not just like, oh, Naughty Dog knows them as clickers. You know what I mean? Like it's one of like the creator notes that doesn't really play into the game.
Like it's an in-world name, like they call them that. Like that's
they call them clickers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when Henry drops that line and goes, "You two have seen clickers? 2 of them have survived." Ooh, nice. Yeah. And the funny thing is, we know the clickers they saw.
Right.
So that was pretty cool. The whole colony we talked about before, the Ish underground colony. We get the Savage Starlight Endurance comic book, which, if you guys remember, this is a collectible item throughout the entire game.
Yep.
And if you collect all the comics, it's a trophy. And of course, Ellie really gets all excited. And it's so funny because I don't know if you remember, after the first one that you find, or the first one that Ellie steals from Bill's, because apparently Ellie's a bit of a kleptomaniac. She just grabs stuff and just keeps it.
Always taking things.
Every time you find one within the world, if Ellie's far away or whatever, Joel always says, "Hey Ellie, I found another one of them comics you like."
Yes.
Every time you find one, so it's super cool. The colored child drawing of our protectors, Donnie and Ish.
Yeah.
I showed it earlier. That it's literally in the game. And it's literally the same image, which, by the way, the fact that they got the same image for this, the same image for that porno mag of the last episode, the same image for this, like it's all literally the same thing. It's hilarious.
Well, it's like I feel like they have the asset already, so it's like it's a high def asset, probably. Just print it.
Just make it look old, and we'll put it on there. The cul-de-sac, the sniper, that whole sequence. It literally mirrors the game. Like even the house where the sniper is looks exactly as the one in the game. The big difference is that the whole sequence in the game occurs during the day, and in the show it occurs in the night. The hunter rebel encounter within the cul-de-sac, is followed by an infected encounter. That's just like how it happens in the game. Ellie's switchblade takedown with the clickers. That's
Yes.
just like in the game. Even makes the noise. The bloater death animation and soundtrack is just like in the game. And the whole sequence where Henry, Sam, Ellie, Joel survive, but Sam gets bit. The big difference is that in the game, Sam doesn't tell anybody. The show, Sam tells Ellie, and Sam turns and attacks Ellie. Henry kills Sam and ends himself after realizing what he did. That is also in the game. If we missed any of the Easter eggs, let us know. Put it in the comments. We'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thank you for joining us for this. Join us for this episode of Beyond the Clickers. We love talking The Last of Us every single week. We will be back here next Tuesday, our regular schedule, to talk about episode 6, which I think it's titled Kin. And I think I saw that somewhere with a picture of Tommy, because we're getting Gabriel Luna back as Tommy.
Yes.
So that's going to be an awesome episode. Hopefully this keeps. Appreciate the love. I know it's from a place of love. We suck from a place of love.
Great.
Thank you. And stay tuned. If you guys have any questions for us, let us know. Whenever you guys come in, you put it in the comments. We will give you support, and we would love you guys to join the conversation.
Yes, sir.
We'll definitely do the comments, even if it's, stuff like this,
Even if it's garbage.
So Brett, if people wanted to find you and your creative musings in the webs, where can they find you?
You can find me at SuperBrettCon on Twitter, and you can also find me weekly on the Fanboy Podcast with Mario Francisco Robles, who is at Superman on Film. And so you can find us there on all your favorite podcast services. We're there every Friday, usually.
Drop. You can find me at the Scarlet Fan 52 on Twitter, here on the Shatter After, talking movies, interviewing creators, and talking Last of Us and DC Comics and news and movies. And you can find me at the Amateur Otaku Podcast, talking about anime, manga, every single week. We do shorts and a lot of cool stuff. But before you leave, I'm going to leave this with you. This is very important, so listen very well. Stay awesome, be awesome, and as the great Savage Starlight would say, endure and survive. We will see you next time. You guys are awesome.
See you next week.
Peace.